The radical left has taken over the Democratic Party.
Hello and welcome to Think Progressively, covering politics and all the other chaos life has to offer. This is episode 101, recorded on Friday, September 22nd from Milwaukee. I'm Joe.
And I'm Jason.
And on today's episode, we discuss the GOP's newest educational tool, PragerU Kids. Where's my blow thing? Nah, they don't deserve it.
The sad trombone.
Yeah. Don't tempt me. We have audio clips now. I will get one. But first, the headlines.
Up yours, woke moralists. We'll see who cancels who.
So let's start this off with another impeachment story. Republicans have officially launched their impeachment inquiry into Joe Biden and the Biden family corruption scheme.
The Biden crime family.
Oh, scary. Where's the... Now we need the bum, bum, bum.
Dun, dun, dun.
We have so many ideas. We need a soundboard. That's what we need in this studio.
President Hunter Biden, who's on his 5th term in office now.
He's basically Vladimir Putin at this point, and there's no telling what this guy will do next. So on September 12th, Kevin McCarthy announced an impeachment inquiry into President Joe Biden. The inquiry will be conducted by the House's Judiciary, Oversight, Ways, and... Oh my God, there's so many. Judiciary, Oversight, and Ways and Means committees.
Ways and Means is one.
Yeah. There's 3 full committees at least. Mm-hmm. Now, I'm sure they're going to find so much ample evidence, as we already previously discussed, that will be, without a doubt, super non-controversial. There's no holes in the story.
This is, of course, the first time in American history that an impeachment inquiry has been launched with no evidence and no even description of a crime having taken place.
Just screw you in the middle finger.
We're just looking for whatever we can find.
Oh, God.
And that's why we need an inquiry, so we can find all the evidence. It's not generally how it works. It's always been, here's what happened, here's the evidence we have, this is why we need to launch an impeachment inquiry, but we're not dealing with logical, rational actors here. This is not a good faith investigation. Nothing actually really happened.
Right. This is Kevin McCarthy kowtowing and pandering to the Freedom Caucus. Mm-hmm. That's all it is. Because he is terrified of what they're going to do. And I mean, literally take his job away because of the terms that he agreed to when he became Speaker of the House.
We might hear a little bit about that at the end of this segment.
Oh.
So not only do we not have any evidence of anything happening, we don't even know what it is that he's being accused of, other than just corruption, but we know it has something to do with Hunter Biden working for Burisma almost 10 years ago when Joe Biden was then the vice president. And I don't know if you remember, Joe, but I remember a couple years ago when
That's too long ago. I don't remember. That was 8 years ago, man. 2 years ago, it doesn't mean anything anymore to me anymore.
When Republican senators refused to impeach Donald Trump just based on the grounds that he was at that point no longer president, even though those impeachment hearings were taking place a week after January 6th. And this is almost 10 years after whatever they're going to end up accusing Hunter Biden. I still feel like they're really just accusing Hunter Biden. And then apparently he also talked to his dad on the phone, which implicates Joe Biden as well.
Well, Jason, I mean, time is a construct, man.
So
who are you to say a week versus 10 years? That's your opinion, okay, man?
Mm-hmm.
That's my doobie.
So how does this stack up to those Trump impeachments? Was there any evidence there? I thought Trump was accused of nothing, too, according to Republicans.
Well, I can't wait for this. Let's talk about the first Trump impeachment.
In his first impeachment, Trump was accused of soliciting the interference of Ukraine in the 2020 election against Joe Biden. Remember, I just need you to say that you're investigating him, and I'll do the rest.
And not only were there actual transcripts, there are also witnesses that testified in front of Congress saying as such.
And the perfect phone call, and also obstruction of Congress because it was congressional aid that was voted for that was supposed to go to Ukraine that President Trump was basically holding hostage unless Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky helped him investigate Hunter and Joe Biden.
My other fear was when he was trying to hold up the funds because he thought thought there was a literal box of servers somewhere in Ukraine that held Hillary's emails. And I had to explain to a coworker of mine how insane that actually was. So that's the first one. What about the second one?
That was the first one. So we had actual evidence. There was definitely a phone call. No one disputes that. No one disputes what was said.
Nope.
In the second impeachment, Trump was accused of inciting an insurrection.
Well, that didn't happen, so I don't know what you're talking about.
By lying about the results of the 2020 election that he lost and encouraging his supporters to head to the Capitol.
Well, he never lied about the election, and still clearly doesn't lie today about the election.
Right. He never claims that it was stolen from him and that he actually won, and that if this was a real country, we would storm the seats of power and take it back for our Lord and Savior, Donald Trump.
And let's just say hypothetically that impeachment hasn't also been backed up by multiple federal cases against him, including one by, I don't know, maybe a guy named Jack Smith, where they're actually accusing him of, 14, 15 felony counts of conspiracy against the United States?
Right, and a state investigation in Georgia as well. So obviously tons of more evidence than you could ever want for that actually happening.
And what's even crazier is there's more evidence for the second one than there is the first, because Trump won't shut up.
And again, Senate Republicans couldn't even defend Trump's actions. All they said was, it doesn't matter because he's not president anymore.
Right.
That was their basis for acquitting him. So those were the Trump indictments, or impeachments.
So what does McCarthy have then?
They're going to find out. That's
Great.
it. That's whenever anyone asks what the actual evidence is, the Republican response, and it's been multiple senators, representatives, have just said, well, that's what the inquiry is for us to find the evidence.
Fantastic.
Previously, McCarthy had told Breitbart that he would not launch an impeachment inquiry without a vote in the House, and that was less than 30 days ago at the end of August. A quote from that interview: "To open an impeachment inquiry is a serious matter, and House Republicans would not take it lightly or use it for political purposes. The American people deserve to be heard on this matter through their elected representatives. That's why, if we move forward with an impeachment inquiry, it would occur through a vote on the floor of the People's House and not through a declaration by one person."
How very honorable. I'm sure he stuck to that.
And then last Friday, he announced that he was launching an impeachment inquiry.
Through the declaration of one individual?
Yes, and not through a vote. He now says that a vote is not important because there was no vote prior to the first Trump impeachment inquiry in 2019.
Which is freaking hilarious, because that's exactly why he took such a firm stand the first time. Because he was trying to call out Nancy Pelosi.
Well, and again, his words that I just read were from a month ago, which I know time is a flat circle and all that, but that was actually after 2019. Even in the 2019 impeachment, there was a vote after the inquiry began. And as you mentioned, there is another reason, the real reason, why he has changed his mind.
No, and literally all I see for listeners is I just see a hyperlink thing that says the real reason he changed his mind. That's all I got.
I rise today to serve notice. Mr. Speaker, you are out of compliance with the agreement that allowed you to assume this role. The path forward for the House of Representatives is to either bring you into immediate total compliance or remove you pursuant to a motion to vacate the chair.
And now I know what you're talking
And that
about.
was, of course, Florida Representative Matt Gaetz, essentially threatening the Speaker of the House on the House floor, saying, if you don't give us what we want, we're going to remove you as Speaker, which is really what McCarthy cares about.
Well, and what's even funnier, if I remember correctly about this clipping, I could be very wrong, is Gaetz went to the floor basically right after he learned that McCarthy was giving him what he wanted. And then he went out and said, we're still going to take you out
right,
anyway.
I think he had that speech prepared.
Yeah.
He didn't want to stick to
well,
it.
McCarthy had no clue what to do at that point, because he already gave him what he wanted. He's like, what do you want from me now? And I think that's the main theme of this entire story, is that the Freedom Caucus, and we'll get to her, Lauren Boebert, Matt Gaetz, Jim Jordan, all those other crazies, have McCarthy so well by the balls that they can do whatever they want with him.
Right, and we knew that was the case. We reported on it at the time. They went through a number of votes, a record number number of votes before McCarthy was elected as the speaker, and widely reported at the time that in order for him to get those votes, he needed to give up a concession to the Freedom Caucus, stating basically that he was going to abide by their rules or they could remove him.
Well, and we see that happening right now with the looming government shutdown that's going to happen very soon.
September 30th.
Yes, exactly. And the GOP in the House are just completely factioned.
Yeah, they are, some would say, fractured and dysfunctional.
Or maybe disarray.
I do not see how they get a deal passed and avoid that shutdown, unfortunately.
I don't either.
It's going to furlough almost 1 million federal workers. It's going to shut down a lot of federal parks. It's going to have huge implications. Social Security, the payments themselves will still go out, but there won't be any adjustments, anything like that. It's going to be a nightmare, as it was when this happened previously.
My concern, though, is I think there is a real risk for Biden here because the average voter may not have any clue about what's going on, and they're just going to blame Biden, like how a lot of people blame Trump for the last shutdown. And they're not going to understand where the connections are actually being made, and they don't realize that Kevin McCarthy has absolutely no control over his entire caucus. And I mean, even today, I think he tried to make an announcement, or it was like this week, he made an announcement saying like there's a faction of his party that just wants to burn it all down, and he's surprised by that now.
Right.
What do you do?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, unlike the debt ceiling, where I said multiple times that wasn't going to happen because it would impact corporations, because we're talking about the stock market.
Right.
And Republicans are never going to let that happen.
Right.
But this, shutting down the government, that is exactly what they want. So I very much feel like this will happen. I hope we don't break the record of that 2019 shutdown.
Me neither. I guess we'll see. Let's move back to our home state, Wisconsin, where, in a surprise twist, Assembly Republicans announced a plan to introduce a brand new Iowa-style fair maps redistricting process.
And that basically, Iowa-style, just means a third-party, nonpartisan group draws the maps.
That is correct.
Which is what we all want.
Well, and
except if you're already part of the legislature, and then you don't want that because it could jeopardize your cushy seat.
Well, so let's talk a little bit about that. This was in response to the looming defeat that Republicans were going to have with trying to impeach Janet Protasewicz. We talked about that last time, I believe.
Correct.
Then, to catch everyone off guard, as a last-second Hail Mary, they officially announced a brand new bill where they're going to completely overhaul the redistricting process and create a nonpartisan redistricting commission, like Jason just explained earlier. The Assembly passed the bill on a 64-32 vote, with one Democrat, Lakeisha Myers, voting in favor of the bill, and 2 Democrats not being present for the vote. Now, lots of people may be asking, why the sudden change of heart from Republicans? They finally realized it was a stupid idea to try to impeach Justice Protasewicz. A poll from Better Wisconsin found that Wisconsin voters opposed the impeachment by a 24-point margin, double of what she ended up winning by in April. And I think it's kind of funny, I'm just going to put this in here as well. Republican State Rep Ron Tussler basically gave the game away, where he tweeted out a video explaining the new Republican plan, and predictably, many accounts responded saying they were only doing this because they were losing the battle to impeach Justice Protasewicz, to which Tussler's account responded back saying, quote, "Perhaps, why do you think we are all of a sudden in favor of something that we were against?" But now, is this actually what Democrats really wanted? The answer is kind of. While Republicans will try to claim that Democrats are being hypocrites for voting against something they have been pushing for all this time now. I mean, we were talking about, how many years now?
I would welcome a truly bipartisan third-party redistricting.
Except the way that they actually structured their bill still leaves the legislature tons of power and ability to still veto the maps and put out maps that they want at the end of the day. And this was so deceitful to the point where bipartisan leaders of Iowa actually came out with a statement saying the proposal currently in front of the Wisconsin state legislature cannot accurately be called an Iowa model.
Those liberals in Iowa.
Liberals such as Mike Mahaffey, who is the former chair of the Republican Party of Iowa. Here's a quote from their statement. "We are proud of Iowa's record on nonpartisan redistricting and appreciate being a model for other states who believe in moving toward fair legislative maps. However, the proposal currently in front of the Wisconsin legislature cannot be accurately called the Iowa model because it lacks the elements that have been the foundation for our system's success." And then they go on to clarify exactly what that means. What are your thoughts on this whole thing? And what do you think Democrats should do right now?
I think they should veto this bill. Passing this bill will just take all of their ability to complain about the extremely gerrymandered partisan maps away. But it will not remove the currently gerrymandered, partisan, heavily Republican legislature's power from continuing.
Which is the whole point of wanting to do this in the first place.
Right, is to get away from those maps. And they know that there is the ability to do that with the now liberal majority state Supreme Court.
Correct.
And they are terrified.
Absolutely.
Which is why they are threatening to impeach a justice that was just elected and has not even heard a single case, because they're so afraid of that. Because it will remove their stolen majority. So yes, do not give in to their plans. If you do that, if you pass this bill, they're going to continue to put their thumb on the scale. And when the people of Wisconsin complain, they can point to this bill and say, see, we passed this completely fair bipartisan measure to give you fair maps, but ignore the fact that they don't have to actually abide by those maps and can continue to do exactly what they did only 3 years ago.
Well, and here's the insane part of what a couple of Democrats have tried to put amendments to this bill too as well. And we were actually talking about this last week, if I remember correctly.
Mm-hmm.
One of the other
we didn't have a show last week.
We didn't have a show last week. One of the amendments was to make the vote for the maps bipartisan. That's it. You want to guess what bipartisan means, Jason?
Having at least one Democrat vote for it?
Wrong. There is no freaking definition of bipartisan, so no one has any idea what that actually is supposed to mean. They also have another one where the board has to actually have somebody to consult on the Voting Rights Act to make sure that black and brown communities are not disenfranchised through the redistricting process.
Which should already be the function of the Voting Rights Act, but was destroyed by the U.S. Supreme Court.
Absolutely. And that sounds nice. However, because of how short-sighted these people were, all they have to do is just include them. They don't have to take anything they say seriously.
Right.
They can dismiss it and ignore it and say, cool, we have this person over here. You can say as much as you want, and that's going to be about it. And then we're going to go off and do our gerrymandering anyway.
And likely do exactly what they did, or trying to do, which is our next story, with the Wisconsin Elections Commission that was also created by the Republican-led Wisconsin state legislature, and then just try to get rid of it in the future, which is exactly what happened with that. They didn't like the way the Wisconsin Elections Commission was fairly running the election and not trying to overturn the will of the people to give the election to Donald Trump, so they're trying to get rid of it.
Right.
What's going to happen when this third party draws fair maps that do not give an advantage to the Republican Party? They're just going to get rid of it down the line.
Well, and let's quickly talk about that. So along with this whole other thing the Assembly was doing, the GOP in the Senate, where they are on, I believe they actually have a supermajority in the Senate.
They have
a supermajority in the Senate. They're 2 away from a supermajority in the Assembly.
Mm-hmm.
They just voted to fire the nonpartisan chair of the Wisconsin Elections Commission, Megan Wolf. And we've talked about her, I think, several times on this podcast, and how she's been the target of conspiracy theories since the 2020 election. And now, while their vote can't actually do anything, she won't actually be fired. And I think there's going to be a whole thing that actually ends up going to court over this.
Well, we talked about this a long time ago, but our previous conservative majority state Supreme Court insanely ruled that anyone who finished serving their term does not have to leave their position. That if the Assembly will refuse to vote on and approve the governor's appointee for any position, that the person that's in there currently can just stay, which is what we have on the DNR board.
Yep.
Which is a Republican essentially squatting in that position because the Assembly refuses to vote on his replacement. So because they made that just insane ruling, they set the stage for the Wisconsin Elections Commission chair to just stay in that spot.
This whole thing is insane, man.
So their own ridiculous plotting has backfired on them in this case.
And I'm legitimately concerned, Jason, for the future of democracy of our state.
There is very little democracy currently in the state of Wisconsin.
This is what's happening with our state GOP.
Mm-hmm. It has happened for years.
It has, right. And what do you even do at this point, man? Like, we used to pretend that we were something different than like Bama and Texas and
Indiana
and these absolute crazy legislatures, and we've become worse.
Right.
God damn it. To the story we've all been waiting for.
In a contender for Foxed in the Head this week, but not the winner, which is just in and of itself, like, what do you have to look forward to in that segment? We have Lauren Boebert. Last Sunday, Colorado representative attended a stage play of the musical Beetlejuice in Denver.
One of the most provocative, get the juices flowing types of musicals you'll ever see.
She was asked to leave the theater by staff for being a general nuisance, including vaping and not stopping, even after being asked to by a pregnant woman who was sitting behind her. There's, the GOP must protect those unborn babies. She was taking flash selfies.
Who takes flash selfies? What is going on?
Obviously, a play is not going to allow any flash photography, but yes, she was taking selfies with the flash on, singing loudly and waving her arms around like she was at a concert.
Oh my God.
She initially claimed that she was not vaping and that the smoke was caused by fog machines and e-cigarettes used in the play, according to her spokesperson.
Oh, could you imagine being Lauren Boebert's spokesperson? Just having
I hope it pays well.
It doesn't, man. It really doesn't.
She also tweeted out, "It's true. I did thoroughly enjoy the amazing Beetlejuice at the Buell Theater, and I plead guilty to laughing and singing too loud." So she tried to play it off like, oh, it's nothing. Everyone's lying about what happened. I just got a little rowdy and I was asked to leave. No big deal.
Well, I heard her saying something like, I'm sorry that I'm a little bit more animated in my personality.
And more stories started to come out. She flipped off the ushers that were escorting her out. She played the whole, don't you know who I am?
I was going to say, didn't she actually say that, don't you know who I am?
Which she denies, but if you watch the video, that's like her mannerisms is 100% Karen personified. She is definitely pulling that card as she's being escorted out. But then something happened. Video recordings from inside the theater were released, clearly showing that she was indeed vaping and also engaging in some pretty lewd behavior with her date during the all ages showing.
Oh, God.
I mean, he was digging down the front of her dress. She was grabbing his crotch. I don't know. It's not like a movie theater where it's like really dark and, because you have the bright screen in front of you and all the lights are off. This is a stage play. You can usually see around you fairly well. And when you are a very recognizable figure, like if you were to go to a play and Ron Johnson was sitting like the next aisle over, I would be constantly staring at him and trying to wait for him to turn to me so I could flip him off or like spit on him or something. So I would be watching him, and I imagine it would be really distracting because I would be really upset that that guy was in the same theater as me. I imagine like that had to have been somewhat of what was, or you at least have to have that expectation if you're someone like a Lauren Boebert. Either people really like you and they're kind of paying attention to you because of that, or they really hate you and they're kind of paying attention to you because of that. So to engage in that kind of behavior and really draw attention to yourself and then play handsy just seems like a bad idea. I don't think anyone saw it at the time. That wasn't what she got kicked out for. That wasn't what people are complaining about.
But the memes, Jason.
But that's what happens when she lied about everything that happened and tried to deny it all.
Well, I think the theater is the one that put the whole thing out, right?
They have like,
that's
like night vision cameras in there. Like you get a really pretty clean view of what's going on.
Oh. Where's like this version of Make America Great Again, where like things like this would end someone's political career overnight?
Well, she, if you remember, she barely won her last election bid, like less than 1%.
I know, but that's what I'm saying.
And there are a lot of conservatives attacking her based solely on the sexual nature, not like all of the other just obnoxious behavior that was going on, and lying to everyone, openly lying and saying like, oh no, I wasn't doing that. I wasn't vaping. That was just the smoke machine. And very clearly she's vaping. How do you trust somebody who's just going to openly lie to you?
Right.
And her side, she said that she just forgot that she was vaping.
How drunk do you think she was?
I don't know about drunk, but it is Colorado. Recreational marijuana is legal. Well, we don't know what was in that vape. I don't think it was tobacco.
I think she said like she blacked out or something like that too. Like she legitimately did not remember anything that happened. Which is insane.
I mean, her behavior would suggest some type of mood alteration was going on.
Well, then I also heard something along the lines of how her boyfriend, which I guess, by the way, was supposedly this was the first date.
Right. And well, it's her ex-boyfriend.
Yeah. But like the guy was like a Democrat bar owner or something like that.
Right. Apparently I don't know if it's like you register in Colorado, maybe, but everyone's saying he's a Democrat.
Yeah. And I don't care. I just want it to be true.
He owns a gay-friendly bar.
Right.
And they have had at least one drag show at the bar. You got to keep the kids safe. Honestly, you have to keep the kids safe from Lauren Boebert.
How could
apparently.
Could you imagine being the guy that ends up going on a date with Lauren Boebert?
Right, you match with somebody and it's Lauren Boebert.
Right. And again, if it's true that he was an actual Democrat, like, it makes sense if he was a Republican because they're all crazy over there.
She says he's a Democrat. She kind of insinuated that she didn't know.
Well, that's even funnier then. So then you had to have known who she was because she's like one of the most infamous people in the country.
Right. Yeah, the guy, I mean, he had to have known.
Oh my God.
But of course, after being exposed publicly with video evidence where she can no longer just deny that all this happened. And I think, honestly, most of the reason people were upset was what you're talking about, the fact that her date was a Democrat who had a gay-friendly bar. She had to release a statement apologizing for her behavior, and she blamed her divorce.
Oh, did she now?
Yes. A quote from the statement: "There's no perfect blueprint for going through a public and difficult divorce."
Get out of here. No. You, like, come on.
Which over the past few months has made for a challenging personal time for me and my entire family.
My God.
So now she's kind of blaming her kids too. And she's only like 36 or something, and she's a grandmother. I've tried to handle it with strength and grace as best I can, but I simply fell short of my values on Sunday. That's unacceptable, and I'm sorry. What happened to, I enjoyed myself and I was laughing and singing too loud. What happened to that? Now it's, I fell short of my values, and that's unacceptable. So she only said that after she was caught with video evidence.
Oh, Jason, this story and the memes will live forever.
And it's the hypocrisy that I don't care about what they were doing. You probably shouldn't do that during an all-ages show, or there probably were children. You do that kind of stuff in the back of a movie theater. Wait till you get in the Uber at least.
But I think I know what you're saying. You're hitting the point, because people who are complaining about this, who are making a big deal, and even the mainstream media who are Lauren Boebert's attacking about with all this, they're not like clutching their pearls and how dare she?
Right.
No, they're saying you are leading a literal movement about how bad it is to groom children and how schools are being sexually inappropriate to children, for God's sakes. And you're pulling crap like this. Am I close?
Yeah, I mean, that's the issue. And the fact that she lied about it and would have continued to lie about it if not for the video evidence just shows the kind of person that she is. And also, just as a little added bonus here, the husband that she's getting divorced from was cited early on in their, I guess, relationship for exposing himself in a bowling alley to Boebert and her friends when they were underage.
Yep.
So
real family values.
She has a type, it appears. And for a little bit of breaking news for our final headline of the day, in a story that contrasts with our first story where there is no evidence of corruption when it comes to the president and he's being impeached for something we don't really know what. If you want to know what evidence of corruption looks like, take a look at Democratic Senator from New Jersey and chair of the Senate Foreign Relations Committee, Bob Menendez. Both he and his wife have been charged with bribery over their alleged acceptance of hundreds of thousands of dollars in return for the use of the senator's influence to enrich 3 New Jersey businessmen and benefit the Egyptian government.
That sounds pretty Jersey, I'm not going to lie.
According to an indictment filed in Manhattan federal court that was made public today. The charges include conspiracy to commit bribery, conspiracy to commit honest services fraud, and conspiracy to commit extortion under color of official right, whatever that means. The bribes the couple received included cash, gold bars.
Why?
Payments towards a home mortgage, compensation for a low or no-show job, which the last time I heard that was literally in The Sopranos, where they give you a job that you don't have to show up to, or maybe you show up once every couple months.
It's a consulting gig or something.
Right.
Yeah.
A luxury vehicle and other items of value.
Oh, great. So screw this guy, basically.
Right. And again, he's a Democrat. Don't care. He needs to resign or be put in jail, whichever.
Republicans, take note how we're doing this. See how easily we just yep, you're gone. We're done with you. Goodbye.
Search warrants were executed on the Menendez's home and safe deposit boxes in June, with authorities seizing more than $500,000 in cash.
$500,000?
And several gold bars.
Why do you have these gold bars? Why?
This is Mr. Gold Bars.
What are you going to do with them?
It's an investment, Joe. That's what I always see whenever I listen to any right-wing media. There's always somebody trying to sell me gold.
Jesus Christ.
Menendez was also charged in 2015 for illegally accepting favors from a Florida eye doctor, including flights on a private jet, 3 nights at a 5-star hotel in Paris, and more than $700,000 in political contributions for him and the Democratic Party.
What did he give him in response?
The case ended in a mistrial after jurors were unable to reach a unanimous verdict.
That's lame.
Federal prosecutors decided not to retry him in the wake of the 2016 Supreme Court decision to dramatically narrow the definition of government corruption while overturning the conviction of former Republican governor of Virginia, Bob McDonnell, in which John Roberts wrote in the majority opinion that routine political courtesies like arranging meetings or urging underlings to consider a matter.
Oh, don't use the word underling.
Generally do not rise to the level of corruption, even when the people seeking those favors give the public officials gifts or money.
Wait, that's the whole point.
And then after reading that, I don't even know what Republicans are going, even if whatever they say is true with Hunter Biden and Joe Biden.
Then what's the point?
The Supreme Court said it's fine. And I wonder why that Supreme Court in 2016 had members like John Roberts, Samuel Alito, and Clarence Thomas. Why would they rule that taking gifts and money from people for favors would somehow not equal corruption? Wonder why.
See episodes 100, 99, 98, 97, 96.
Menendez has stepped down from his committee chair during the investigation. Ooh, wow. But of
What
course,
an honorable man of you, Miss Bob.
But of course maintains his innocence. There have already been calls from other New Jersey Democrats for him to resign. And I will like to add our voice to those calls for him to resign. And I hope him and his wife, I hope they both go to jail.
I'm really concerned that it's not all New Jersey Democrats are calling for him to resign. There have been calls.
Mm-hmm. It's not like there's a formal poll that's gone out, and this was
Well,
just
there
announced
freaking
today.
should be. Do you think members of your party should be convicted if they commit literal crimes?
Well, I mean, again, are there people in the Democratic Party that care more about party loyalty than they do about government corruption? Certainly there are.
Right.
Are there other corrupt Democrats? I guarantee there are. Politics in general breeds corruption because of the way the system is set up, which is literally bribery is legal. Lobbyists are 100% legal. They're allowed to wine and dine and do whatever they want to gain the influence of politicians. And literally, like I said in this Supreme Court decision from 2016, it's fine to bribe government officials and have them use their influence to help you. That's the reality. As long as it looks looks like a normal function of their job. The only thing you literally have to have is like this spelled out plan. You give me money and I pass this law for you.
It has like written out in like special font and printed out and sent to like the entire nation, a press release, for God's sakes.
What do you do if you're a prosecutor to have that level of evidence?
Oh my God.
And that is the country we're in. So yes, I mean, like, are there incredibly corrupt politicians in the Democratic Party? Yes, I guarantee there are. Is there evidence, again, that Joe Biden had anything to do with Hunter Biden in Burisma? There's not. He talked to him on the phone. He talked to his son on the phone when his son called him, while his other son was dying in the hospital, by the way.
Yep.
Yeah, I bet he would do that.
Yeah, so before any of you start coming at us like, oh, you would never do this if it was Democrat. Yes, we would. Here you go. Here's your freaking evidence.
I have no problem removing this guy. Like I said, throwing him in jail, whatever needs to be done, getting rid of this type of corruption, getting rid of all lobbying and money going to these politicians. I'm 100% in favor of. And to the Supreme Court as well.
M&Ms will not be satisfied until every last cartoon character is deeply unappealing and totally androgynous. Until the moment you wouldn't want to have a drink with any one of them. That's the goal. When you're totally turned off, they've won.
Boy, ain't right.
And this week in Fox in the Head, Senator Chuck Schumer recently asked the Sergeant-at-Arms to stop enforcing their formal wear policy, which required male senators to wear a suit and tie while on the Senate floor, and to embrace a more casual dress code for the Senate.
You know what I hate, Joe? I hate those Washington elites, those darn liberals, always thinking they're better than the common folk. I can't stand them.
So, in a world where we have Russia still trying to invade Ukraine, the government's on the verge of shutdown, Lauren Boebert's giving a guy a hand job in a theater, Republicans are losing their goddamn minds because we're not required to make senators wear suit and ties anymore while on the floor.
They have to dress like regular, they get to dress like regular people.
Literally, I'm not kidding.
No.
I'm not kidding. No one's saying you can't. I gotta make this clear. No one's saying you can't wear a suit. In fact, Chuck Schumer says, I'm going to continue wearing a suit and tie. All they're saying is, if you want to dress down, go ahead. And it all centers around John Fetterman because he's the one who doesn't typically like to wear suits.
Mm-hmm. Giant ogre-like human being, senator from Pennsylvania.
Right.
John Fetterman, who traditionally wears like a
hooded
sweatshirt and shorts.
I hate that you call it a hooded sweatshirt. I don't like that. It's a hoodie.
Hoodie.
Jesus Christ. Marjorie Taylor Greene came out in full force saying the Senate no longer enforcing a dress code for senators to appease Fetterman is disgraceful.
Marjorie Taylor Greene calling anyone disgraceful is hilarious.
Dress code is one of society's standards.
Oh, come on. You can do better than that. We're talking about Marjorie Taylor Greene.
I don't want to. No, I'm not. Dress codes is one of society's standards that set etiquette and respect for our institutions. Stop lowering the bar. I don't do it, dude. I don't do it imitations well. I had the voice in my head, and then I said something, and it wasn't that voice. Blame Jason for that. That's all you have to say. Blame Jason. Ron DeSantis even made mention of it during a campaign stop, saying that we should be lifting up our standards and not dumbing them down. Which, by the way, Ron, what are you doing, man? Like, you're down by 30 points, and this is what you're going to be talking about?
And again, the person that constantly attacks the elites.
Right.
Ivy League elites trying to tell us what to do.
And of course, we have a couple of news clips for you guys of Fox News host The Five, and we'll get to it, Megyn Kelly losing their absolute minds, saying that it's basically the end of the world. Let's listen.
All of a sudden, they have one guy saying, Schumer saying, for the benefit of Fetterman, you know, you can wear whatever you want. And yet the staffers who barely make a living, you have to go out and buy, you know, fancy clothes. This guy looks like he's in a gang or he's working out somewhere. I think the whole thing is horrible. I think it's part of the deterioration of this country. For one guy, that guy, they're going to change the rules? Ridiculous.
I agree with the judge. I think this is an abomination to the way government should conduct itself.
An abomination to how government should conduct itself.
I mean, she makes a good point that they should also relax the dress code for staffers.
Right.
But she doesn't make a good point for the fact that they should enforce the dress code.
Honey, where's my pearls? I need to clutch them immediately. Jesus Christ.
This guy's got shorts on.
There was also a clip from Susan Collins that said that she's going to start wearing bikinis on the floor. But you can tell, like, they've got nothing. They have no reason other than they're just like, oh, it's different, and just start screaming and freaking out about the degradation of the country.
Right.
Because they have no
Well, I mean,
argument.
how old and out of touch do you sound? To
Right.
be like, letting these kids wear these jeans
Y'all call hoodies? I say hoodlum if you ask me.
back in my day.
But
And it's like the guy wants to be comfortable. He had a stroke. He's a bigger guy. Just let him be comfortable. Who cares?
Who
Again,
cares?
this is supposed to be a branch of government that is composed of the people, right?
Yes.
We're not supposed to be ruled by
The elite class.
right. It's literally of the people, by the people, for the people.
And what better example of like a people's representative is better than John Fetterman?
Right.
Where he's just a guy from Pennsylvania who just wears hoodies and, as Janine Pirro says, looks like he's dresses like a gang member. Like,
I guess.
I guess, but like that's how people in the country dress, man.
Right.
Like, let it be. And then people are like, well, why are we like having these standards where people are just allowed to break their standards and can't have it happen? We make the rules.
Right.
If Republicans get in office, they can change the rules
Well,
back.
look at what, see, here's the difference. Democrats rule changes for behavior on the Senate floor when Democrats are in charge of the Senate. You can wear something other than a suit and tie. Casual clothing is okay. Republicans say it's the downfall of society.
Right.
Republicans are in charge of the House. They remove the metal detectors and relax the rules about bringing guns into the House floor. I don't know of a better demonstration of the differences of the two parties right now
Than that. And I'm also glad, Jason, you brought up the idea of being old and out of touch. Because I want to then turn into this other clip from the Megyn Kelly show where she has two people, I don't remember their names, I don't care. Two people from Turning Point USA, which if you guys remember is the super far right-wing college recruiting tool for Gen Zers. So she has two young Gen Zs, or maybe one's a Gen Z, one's a millennial, talking about how horrible this is and watch how fast it just deteriorates into absolute hysteria.
Because of the way John Fetterman dresses, now the way that they dress in the Senate, well, you don't have to wear a suit and tie. Now, a lot of people might read that story and be like, oh, yeah, okay, whatever. Yeah, why is it important? It is important because we are the United States of America. We are supposed to be a world superpower. Not only that, but we should have just some type of pride in our country, some type of pride in our leaders and our politicians, some type of morals or values.
You know, Will, I remember when I was growing up, my dad, who was an English scholar, an education scholar, would say, he'd say the fancy words at dinner, and I'd always say, speak English, can't understand you. And he would always say, Megan, I will not lower my vocabulary to meet yours. You must raise yours to meet mine. And we have lowered the standard in the Senate to meet that of John Fetterman. That's what we've done. Instead of stopping the shorts and the hoodie, we've embraced it. Now they're all going to look like schleps when they're in there doing the people's business. It's disgraceful.
Yeah, well, we have a lazy and weak culture where people think that these kind of things are okay. Instead of having any sort of pride in yourself or pride in the way you look, it's just, oh, it doesn't really matter. Nothing really matters. Everything's subjective. The only thing that really matters, again, is being a part of this church of leftism. If you have the right, quote unquote, right ideas, according to these people, you can do anything. It does not matter what you do as long as you believe in the Black Lives Matter stuff, believe that you can have an abortion, quote unquote, abortion after birth, believe that someone is a woman when they're really a man, climate change, all these things. As long as you believe in all this stuff, you can do anything you want and be as lazy and mediocre and miserable and ugly and terrible as possible, because that's what they want. They don't want a world of beautiful things and beautiful people. You know, just to be frank, they don't want that. They want this ugly, dumbed down world where it's easy to control people because they're lazy and look for the easy mint of life.
Wanting to not wear a suit and tie means
this is
that
America.
You're mediocre, lazy, ugly.
We want the ugly of America. Also, I love the fact that Megyn Kelly just comes right out and brags about how much of a dick her dad was to her.
My dad called me stupid all the time, but I mean, she did kind of bring it on herself.
Oh, and Jason, you got to okay, I'm going to put the whole video in the show notes for everyone who wants to bear the whole 6 minutes or whatever it was.
I want to see that conversation though with her dad of yeah, I went to the library today. Speak English, Dad.
I cut so much of it out because they dive so hard into absolute chaos and Alex Jones level crap.
Wearing a hoodie turns the frogs gay.
Yeah, really, I'm not kidding. It's so insane. This weird moral judgment they have and how crazy they just
your
take
dress equates to pride and morality.
Well,
what?
These are the same people that also still probably call suits their Sunday best. For God's sakes. So when we're saying that there's Republicans are saying that this is exactly what happened to Rome, we're not lying. Like, this is how they reacted to this.
Mm-hmm.
Oh.
Like, it's literally the end of our country because someone's going to be allowed to wear comfortable clothes on the Senate floor.
But God forbid the mainstream media freaked out about Lauren Boebert.
Yeah, jacking off her date during Beetlejuice.
You know, the real family values.
That was really a productive segment, wasn't it? It's hard to get any word in with this clown.
We talked on previous episodes about how, I believe it was Florida, correct?
Yes.
Has been embracing PragerU, which is a right-wing propaganda outlet.
A YouTube channel, which is all they are.
Yes.
PragerU, it sounds like it's like a university, right?
It's a YouTube channel.
They are not. They are just a YouTube
It's
channel.
a boomer YouTube channel run by Dennis Prager. And Florida started allowing PragerU Kids to be offered as educational materials in public schools. Well, now, thanks to Oklahoma's Superintendent of Public Instruction, Oklahoma now has officially made a partnership with PragerU to allow PragerU Kids offered as supplemental materials to Oklahoma educators. In said announcement, the superintendent said that he loves PragerU and constantly shares all of the content with his own kids at home, because of course he does. And encourages...
Wouldn't want to just talk to those kids.
And encourages other states to follow suit as well so we can battle leftism in our schools today.
Get the woke out the schools.
So what we decided to do is torture me and go through some of PragerU Kids' videos that are now allowed to be shown as educational materials in at least 2 states and see how bad they actually are. And actually, before I even go there, my algorithm is screwed now, like beyond belief.
From watching all these videos.
I get so many ads now for PragerU Kids. I've gotten ads saying, sign the petition to make sure PragerU Kids is allowed in educational materials in your state today. But that's besides the point. So we're going to break down a couple of videos and just let you guys see, well, listen to actually, how bad these videos actually are.
I mean, feel free to go to the PragerU website.
That's
and
at
watch
your own
yourself.
risk. We ain't recommending that due to legality concerns. You may die. Are you ready, Jason?
No, but I can't leave. We're in my house. So.
Good. All right. We're going to start with a beautiful, beautiful video called Anya's Energy Crisis. I lied. It's Poland, Anya's Energy Crisis.
As someone who is 50% Polish, I protest.
Now, before I actually get into these videos, I just have to say how bad the animation of these videos actually are. Like, it's so bad and low budget. But besides that, this video follows a Polish girl named Anya, and the video describes Poland's energy initiatives like so. Let's take a listen.
As part of a global effort to curb carbon emissions, Poland's leaders promised to cut all coal production by 2049 and switch to renewable energy. But will it work? Those living in fear of climate change are eager to do anything it takes. But others are starting to ask questions.
Just asking questions.
Just asking questions. So Anya learns about climate change from school, where her teacher teaches about climate change. Her best friends are super into climate change. I guess
all the kids always talking about.
It's like described as like this really weird fad. But Anya becomes easily swayed by her parents' thought-provoking questions.
With her teacher's direction, Anya is writing about the dangers of climate change on her blog. She even gave a speech at a climate conference. Anya's parents are proud of her hard work. But when her anxiety gets high and she tells them that fossil fuels will soon lead to a climate disaster, they challenge her with some thought-provoking questions. They encourage her to consider how the planet has been warming and cooling since prehistoric times, long before carbon emissions were a factor. Can she explain that? They ask her if everyone in Poland stops using coal, will that lower Earth's temperature? Especially when countries like China and India burn many times the amount of coal as Poland and are not cutting back. Her parents' questions have made Anya wonder, if she's only been hearing one side of the argument at school and in her online community. She definitely has some research to do.
So Anya is like Greta Thunberg over here.
Apparently. And I love the fact that the video says her parents are super proud of her, but then
But then they bully her.
But apparently they don't realize what she is doing because, hey, I'm gonna go speak at a climate action conference. Cool, we're so proud of you. And then they
be home by Tuesday.
Yeah, and then they say I guess a week later, at dinner, hey, did you know climate change is really bad? What the hell are you talking about? This is what you've been doing this whole time.
Well, and then it's also just the stupidest. We shouldn't do anything because China and India aren't cutting their emissions. So we shouldn't either.
Right.
That's not how that works.
Well, that's literally whataboutism. And I love the fact that they even trot out but the Earth's been heating and cooling forever.
Right.
Even though all the data says, right. Even though all the data and every climatologist all says, hey, if you look at the last 30 or 40 years, you can see a literal magnitude of a spike that happened right during the Industrial Revolution.
Mm-hmm.
There's no controversy about whether or not we've caused climate change.
Science.
Yeah.
It's really not at all disputable.
Oh.
And again, as we talked about previously, getting rid of fossil fuels isn't just about climate change. Yes, it does have a lot to do with climate change. That's why we desperately need to do it right now. But also, fossil fuels are a finite resource that is just going to get more and more scarce and more expensive. And it's in everyone's best interest to move away from them so that you're not dependent on that finite resource.
Dude, you're getting ahead of me, man. So because actually a big theme of this entire video that I didn't say before was in her small town, I guess they banned the use of brown coal because of how bad it was for the environment. Now, in the twist that you probably weren't expecting about this climate change video, we have to talk about Russia invading Ukraine. Because of course we do. And how could Poland be self-sufficient with these harmful green policies when we have to rely on Russia's natural gas and oil? So the narrator claims that we can't rely on these renewable energy sources. And let's play that third clip.
From what she's reading, Anya sees that renewable energy sources don't contribute that much energy. Unlike coal or fossil fuels, energy from wind or sun is unreliable, expensive, and difficult to store. In fact, only 10% of the world's energy comes from those sources.
Which is why we need to invest more heavily in those technologies.
That's the whole freaking point!
And I like how that the sun and the wind is so unreliable.
I know.
Pretty sure your finite fossil fuels are less reliable than the sun and the wind. It's yes, as it is right now, we don't have infrastructure for those renewable resources because it's much cheaper currently to burn coal and gas. But it won't always be that way. But we can't think about the future.
After Anya learns about this, her mind's blown, basically, because that's a theme in these videos.
Because she's been indoctrinated.
Basically.
Yeah.
All these videos are basically
no one has ever heard these arguments and not been convinced. Oh, it's perfectly fine that the Earth is heating up at an unprecedented level and sea levels are rising and the Earth is going to be destroyed for future generations. The wind and the sun are just so unreliable. Windmills give you cancer. And if you collect all the energy from the sun, there's not going to be any left.
So Anya,
real GOP arguments, by the way.
So Anya takes this information back to her class, and they're not having it. In fact, they can't even defend themselves against these amazing facts and questions that Anya is bringing up.
Destroying her classmates with facts and
I love the fact that PragerU is writing these arguments from both perspectives. And every time someone tries to make an argument against climate change or against climate initiatives, whether it's Anya's parents or Anya talking to her class, everyone's just speechless. Whoa, you just blew my mind, bro. And then they also push this idea that people who question mainstream science all the time, especially on climate change, to be honest, are just simply unwelcome and they're not allowed to do this. And it's all about the persecution narrative. And it's even funnier because now that Russia supposedly cut off all of Poland's natural gas, they're literally on the brink of living in Mad Max. You have people like living on the streets. They can't heat their homes. Businesses are crumbling left and right without fossil fuels, and everything's just coming to a complete like anarchy because of lack of fossil fuels.
Right, and obviously missing the really ironic point that the wind and the sun can't be controlled.
Right.
Like these pipelines and these fossil fuels can be. You don't have to get them from other countries. They're available everywhere. You just need to harness them.
Right. And of course, now everyone just hates Anya because she's a climate skeptic. They even point out specifically that once Anya starts blogging about how energy poverty is a problem, not climate change, she gets a response from a literal Karen, like someone named Karen, that says, quote, "Your facts make me angry." And of course,
very real kid.
Right. And of course, they compare Anya losing her friends to the persecution of the Jews during the literal Holocaust.
Anya is the real Anne Frank. But then if she was, then wouldn't her story be banned in Republican
Florida,
schools?
in Oklahoma, yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Okay. Yeah.
And finally, the video ends with her community celebrating fossil fuels with Anya fundraising to buy brown coal from the Czech Republic to heat her town. Oh... Let's go to a different one. Mateo backs the blue.
Yeah, that doesn't completely sound like propaganda and copaganda, as it were.
So we're going to go through this one really fast. After a weird 30-second history of the gold rush and California's part in the gold rush, we begin following Mateo, a 13-year-old son of Mexican immigrants. The video mentions that after his parents' safety were threatened by the cartels in Mexico, Mateo's parents, quote, embarked on the long and expensive process of applying for a green card.
Not in Trump's America, I'll tell you that. Mateo's parents would be dead in the Rio Grande.
Well, listen to how quick the tone shifts, and I bet you have no idea what's going to come after this.
After even more hard work, they were able to open a new grocery store. Soon, Mateo was born, followed by his two sisters, and the family was very thankful for their life in LA. Then, in May 2020, George Floyd, a black man who resisted arrest and was held under the knee of a police officer, died while in custody.
And again, I don't know if you ever watched Avatar, Jason, but that's like so much like, but then the Fire Nation attacked.
The criminal George Floyd
resisted arrest,
trying to buy something with a fake $20 bill that he may or may not have known about.
Yep, we are going to blame Black Lives Matter for just about everything in Mateo's life now.
Resisting arrest by saying, I can't breathe.
Just listen how they characterize the protests and calls to reform in the video.
Activists claimed that the police were targeting the black community and purposefully killing unarmed black men. As the false claims of racial targeting spread, so did the anger and violence. Politicians, activists, celebrities, and even major corporations began to demand reform or complete abolition of the police force. Mateo wondered, who would keep his neighborhood safe if there were less police? He also saw videos of angry protesters blocking traffic on freeways, threatening police, and intimidating restaurant patrons. How would fewer cops be able to stop this type of behavior? When Officer Suarez asked Mateo how he felt about what he had seen on TV, Mateo admitted that he felt sorry for Mr. Floyd's family, but he couldn't understand why rioters seemed to think that destroying other people's property helped the family feel better.
So he feels sorry for him. Oh man, that really sucks for his family, dude.
I mean, I'm sorry that he's dead, but we can't do anything to, like, fix the system.
Well, and that was like the theme I got throughout almost the entirety of this video, where Mateo's like, I can't even imagine why people would be rioting right now. That's so bad and horrible.
Right.
And then the video just goes, moving on. Like, never even ask, like, can you ask one person outside of your freaking bubble why someone may be feeling this way? Nope, screw you. More cops, more cops, more cops. And of course, when Mateo is confused, he goes directly to his friendly school resource officer, who the video makes very clear how super nice and friendly he is, and also even shares Mateo's love for baseball. And his SRO, Officer Suarez, proceeds to blow Mateo's mind. Now, and I had to make this one a little bit, I tried to make this one as short as possible. I had a couple of clips here. You just have to listen to the whole thing because it gets crazy at the end.
Officer Suarez asked Mateo what he thought the purpose of the police truly was. Mateo responded that he felt it was to protect others, like resource officers protect the students at school. To his surprise, Officer Suarez revealed that he also served the community in big and small ways that Mateo had never even realized, including making time for helpful chats with concerned kids just like him. Officer Suarez then revealed something even more surprising. To protect and serve was not only the police's job, but Mateo's as well. Officer Suarez even revealed that there are programs in Los Angeles and all around America, like Neighborhood Watch, which help neighbors look out for one another and connect citizens with their local police departments. Mateo's mind began to spin. He could protect and serve his community. But was there even more he could do as a kid? The easiest thing he could do would be to say thank you to the police officers that worked in his neighborhood, and he started right then and there with Officer Suarez. Now, when Mateo kneels during Mass beside his sisters and parents, he prays for wisdom to know how to protect himself and serve his neighborhood.
Love that they're throwing religion in there too. It's a hallmark of PragerU.
Oh yeah.
It is definitely, I mean, it's like how Mateo learned to lick the boot. Is essentially, and apparently become a snitch.
What can Mateo do? How about thank the frickin' police officers, huh? Show them some goddamn gratitude, man. Oh, like how can you say this is anything besides propaganda?
Yeah, well, it is both conservative and religious, which are kind of the same thing these days. Propaganda. Certainly what I knew this was going to be from the start. I know who Dennis Prager is. I know the content that they have, all the Why I Left the Left videos, and they feature Candace Owens and Ben Shapiro and Dave Rubin and all those idiots. Yes, they make 100% extreme right-wing conservative propaganda. And that's all PragerU Kids is that same propaganda with those same arguments targeted towards children.
And the last bit clips I have for you, Jason,
Yay,
and audience,
more. I'm sure we're all excited.
Is the Leo and Layla series, which is PragerU's attempt at revisionist history, basically.
The only type of history that Republicans like.
Basically, PragerU has a children's history series where the main characters, Leo and Layla, travel through time to meet historical figures. Now, you apparently have an issue with this.
Read what you wrote.
I wrote, it may be an old reference, and I even had to look up just to make sure what it was, but it reminded me of the Mr. Peabody.
No.
Sorry. It reminded me of the really old cartoon, Mr. Peabody and Sherman.
Yeah, Joe. Really, really old cartoon that I totally didn't grow up watching as part of the Rocky and Bullwinkle show.
Yeah, that's really old.
Your mom's really old, Joe.
She is! She's older than you. I'm sorry. And for the record, Jason, I also enjoyed that cartoon growing up, all right? So when I say really old, I also enjoyed it, all right? Let's listen to some highlights.
And had actual history.
Dude, Mr. Peabody.
Not what we're about to.
Mr. Peabody was like straight up awesome. I loved Mr. Peabody. And it was actually really informative. I loved it.
I really think it should have been Dr. Peabody. I felt like he should have earned a doctorate.
At least, or some kind of professor or something, you know? So let's listen to some clips from the Leo and Layla series and see how that compares to Mr. Peabody and Sherman. And further reference before you listen to these clips, Leo and Layla are talking to Booker T. Washington, the American civil rights activist and former slave, Christopher Columbus, and Adam Smith, the supposed grandfather of capitalism. Get ready.
Mr. Washington, sometimes do you wish you could have lived somewhere else, like a different country?
That's a great question. And I hate slavery too, but it's been a reality everywhere in the world. And even now in 1910, it's still happening in other countries. Despite our nation not always living up to our declaration that all men are created equal, I am still so proud and thankful to be an American.
Even though you were a slave?
Exactly, because I was, and not anymore.
Yeah, but what about slavery? You didn't deny that.
Deny? No. Slavery is as old as time and has taken place in every corner of the world, even amongst the people I just left. Being taken as a slave is better than being killed, no? I don't see the problem.
Well, in our time, we view slavery as being evil and terrible.
Ah, magnifico, that's wonderful. I am glad humanity has reached such a time. But you said you're from 500 years in the future? How can you come here to the 15th century and judge me by your standards from the 21st century?
Bosses have to pay their employees and give them benefits. Pay too much, and your business will fail because of lack of profit. Pay too little, and you'll also fail because your employees will leave. It's the invisible hand that will lead you to the right decision. When done right, everybody wins with capitalism.
Wow, they really are defending slavery as hard as they possibly can.
Jason, I had to pick 3, man.
Christopher Columbus literally said, it's not so bad.
He specifically said was, what's worse, being picked up as a slave or being killed? Don't judge me. And they literally did the whole thing of like, how could you judge me by the standards of your day? What is going on? There were Jason, I went down a rabbit hole, man, because I could put so many more freaking clips from this series in there. I had one from Frederick Douglass saying about how slavery wasn't so bad. It was done all over the world like it wasn't Booker T. Washington. And then how the founding fathers knew that slavery was super bad and evil. But we did it to unite the country.
That's the argument that Booker T. Washington gives as well. They hated slavery. That's why they owned hundreds of slaves. Hundreds of them. Because they knew it was wrong, but I
didn't even include all the clips from the Ronald Reagan episode, Jason, where they talk about communism all day long. And then I just
you can't pay your workers too much, then you go out of business.
Let the invisible hand guide your way.
Oh, and if you pay them too little, they'll just go work someplace else. Well, unless everyone is paying, say we had some sort of minimum wage that you were allowed to pay, and that was way below the cost of living.
Well, and for reference, for a little bit of context, that clip came out of in response to Layla needing to make like $100 for like a trip or something like that. And so she made a lemonade stand and had Leo help with it, but she wasn't going to pay him anything.
It really should have, to be more accurate, it should have been like, Layla needs a kidney transplant and she needs to earn $33,000 for her operation. And she starts a lemonade stand.
I can't remember.
And the local news covers it as like a feel-good story.
There is another one, I can't remember. It wasn't a Leo and Layla one, but it was like another video they had about how bad single-payer healthcare was too. So it's insane. So yeah, so that's the
pure
history portion,
and just completely puppeting historical figures to fit their agenda.
Hey, just
I
be
think
happy.
Booker T. Washington and Frederick Douglass would have beat the shit out of Dennis Prager.
Hey, just be happy. I found Booker T. Washington and Frederick Douglass and realized I had way too many clips before I realized they did a
Martin Luther King.
Before they realized Leo and Layla met Martin Luther King.
I knew that's what you were going to say. Yeah, I've seen that one.
So, oh yeah.
And of course, I said that all men are created equal. Of course, that's what he says.
That we should not judge
the only thing
someone
that Dennis Prager knows that Martin Luther King ever said.
Right. That we should not judge someone on the color of their skin, but on the content of their character. Screw off. So by this time, I had a complete mental breakdown, and I was going to include more clips, and then I realized, nope, we'll be here all night.
So this is literally if you have children in public school in Oklahoma or Florida.
This is absolutely what they could be seeing.
Right.
For older kids, PragerU has a how-to series covering the very serious topics of, I'm not making this up, how to be a victor and not a victim. How to be skeptical about climate change. I mean, how to think objectively. And of course, and I'm not making this up, dude, how to embrace your femininity.
Oh, it's a class for everyone, right? You can be feminine, you can be masculine. Those traits aren't really defining to any specific group. It's for everyone.
Where they have super awkward teenagers telling you, quote, stereotypes exist to reflect how men and women are naturally different.
Stereotypes are good, actually.
And it literally encourages kids to, quote, embrace the idea of being a wife or a mother and allow yourself to stay at home to raise your children.
Just be a baby factory.
Get those shoes off and be barefoot already.
Get in the kitchen and make dinner.
So, education? I don't even know what.
Yeah, this is how the modern GOP runs. It's projection. They say liberals are indoctrinating your children in schools, and then they literally build this material to indoctrinate your children in schools.
Well, it's not even remotely factual. Like, that's the point, too. It's like you said.
Well, read any of your children's textbooks and tell me that that is just straight left-wing propaganda. You show me the communism, the Marxism, thinkpropod@gmail.com. Send it in.
We'll look at it.
Right. And then, look at any of this PragerU material.
With Mateo backing the frickin' blue.
In any way comparable.
Right. It's so dumb and dishonest.
And I found a good YouTube video, I will link it, that shows that even beyond the obvious religious and political indoctrination and misinformation that you just heard some of, the actual quality of the educational materials that are provided on their website are full of factual errors, typos, and consist mainly of watching videos and filling out worksheets. Like, those are all the activities they have, is spend 20 minutes watching this video where Ben Shapiro and Matt Walsh talk about the Federalist Papers and then hand out a worksheet to the students. That YouTube channel, it's called Zoe B. I will link that whole video. It's like a 30-minute video that she goes through a bunch of the content and actually looks at what their supplemental educational materials are that are on their channel from an educational perspective, which is something that I don't have any experience with. Joe, you do have a little bit, but kind of outside of the scope of our show. But if you want to see it, that's where it is. And I kind of wanted to close, because like all that horribleness, right? And this invading, it's already in 2 states. It's probably going to spread throughout the South. But I do have some good news, at least for now. Because last month, PragerU announced that they were approved to supply educational materials to the state of Texas. So why haven't we been saying this whole time that it's Oklahoma, Florida, and Texas? Well, the Texas Board of Education disagreed.
I can't believe it.
With PragerU's assessment of them being approved. In a video that is still on their YouTube channel and an announcement that is still on their website, PragerU continues to claim, "We are proud to announce that PragerU's supplementary educational resources are on the approved vendor list in the state of Texas."
No way.
Children in thousands of K through 12 Texas schools now have the opportunity to learn from PragerU's wholesome, patriotic, and age-appropriate content. Watch as PragerU's CEO Marissa Street sits with Julie Pickren, State Board of Education member District 7, to make this special announcement that PragerU Kids is now in Texas. And we'll listen to a little bit of that, but I do want to give some background. The State Board of Education member, Julie Pickren, was elected last year as part of a wave of more conservative candidates. She was previously voted off of a Houston area school board after going to Washington during the January 6th insurrection.
My God.
So let's listen, and I will tell you right off the bat, I have not edited, changed anything with these voices. You're going to hear first the PragerU CEO, Marissa Street, and then Julie Pickren. I promise you this is directly from their site. I have not changed anything.
Hello, Julie in Texas.
Howdy.
It's great talking to you today. So are we ready to announce that PragerU can make it into Texas now?
We are definitely ready to welcome PragerU into the great state of Texas.
The great state indeed. We are so excited.
Jesus Christ.
She sounds like a chipmunk on helium.
Well, if you watch her, she looks like she has a gun pointed to her head. Julie, are you ready to announce that PragerU is coming to Texas?
Howdy, y'all.
Howdy.
So they're still saying that they're approved to Texas. But State School Board Chair Kevin Ellis said he has no knowledge of PragerU submitting instructional material for approval. A quote from him: "No one from PragerU has presented to the State Board of Education or has contacted me as chair of the State Board of Education to discuss any working relationship. The State Board of Education has not received any request from PragerU to be approved as an education vendor. When contacted, PragerU officials said that the nonprofit had spoken with Pickering about Texas schools using its educational materials and had approval as a vendor through the Texas Comptroller's Office.
Oh, did they now?
The Comptroller's Office is the state's chief tax collector, accountant, revenue estimator, and treasurer. So yes, they can approve someone as a vendor to the state, but you still, to have educational material, you have to go through the Board of Education.
Oh my God.
Not through the Comptroller's Office.
But that fits, man, with a PragerU education. That fits so freaking well.
And the last information, I tried to look to see if there were any updates. This is about a month ago. The only updates that I could find were just, again, people on the board saying they've not been contacted. There's nothing on their schedule, on their docket to talk about PragerU material. Nothing is in the works. But again, you go to their website and it says that they're in Texas, that they're approved in Texas, all this, that video, everything. What I just read, that's still available. And it's just not true. Like everything that comes out of PragerU, it's deceitful and dishonest and bends the truth.
And to wrap this up on a more serious note, I guess you can say, is that this is why we keep hounding all the time about how important local school board elections are and how statewide school, like superintendent elections are. We have a liberal superintendent, Jill Underly in Wisconsin, that was being challenged by a right-wing candidate last time. These elections matter because if you get the wrong person there, they're going to have organizations like PragerU come in.
Like Turning Point USA.
And teach your kids. And you didn't just hear paraphrasing from us. You heard the clips themselves. And sure, there are clips. You can try to accuse me of quote mining. I don't care. Go to the videos themselves. They don't do it any justice. I promise you that. I watch them. If you leave this podcast with anything, please know it's not just a bunch of loonies who are trying to change curriculum. There's real money being pushed behind sending your kids literal disinformation and revisionist history to indoctrinate them into the current GOP. And I'm just going to put off as a final warning. You can go listen to this as much as you want, but for your own health and safety, don't do what I did.
Keep your kids off the PragerU.
Friends don't let friends show their kids PragerU Kids. But if you want to get really drunk and do like a drinking game, go for it. Thank you for listening. We hope to see you in the next episode. You can find us on Facebook and Twitter at ThinkProPod. You can email us at thinkpropod@gmail.com. And remember, when in doubt, think progressively.